Okay, board. Do I have a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
Dr. Roundtree and Ms. Franklin. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
And Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to certify closed session that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered?
Second?
Ms. Franklin and Ms. Purcell, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to readmit student A?
Second?
Ms. Franklin and Ms. Purcell, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to long-term suspend student B until the end of the school year?
So moved.
Dr. Roundtree and Ms. Franklin, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to long-term suspend student C until the end of the school year?
Second?
Ms. Franklin and Ms. Bond, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. And do I have a motion to long-term suspend student D until the end of the school year?
So moved.
Ms. Purcell and Ms. Franklin, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Abstain.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
No.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
No.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
4 in favor, 2 opposed, 1 abstain.
Motion carries. All right. Thank you, everybody. As you can tell, we've already had a busy night, but we're going to go into our awards, honors, and recognitions. And if you'll give us just a second here, we're going to transition down. Start off with thanks.
Okay, so first off, we would like to recognize our student school board representatives at this time. The participation of student school board representatives on the Montgomery County School Board is a vital part of giving voice to the students in our school system. Tonight, we recognize this year's student school board representatives for their thoughtful participation and dialogue throughout the year. Do you want me to call them up one by one, or, okay? First off, we have Alexandra Jost, Auburn High School. Okay, second, we have Li Shu Wang from Blacksburg High School. Okay, Jemana Amen, Christiansburg High School. And last, we have Naomi Ramaz Mendoza, Eastern Montgomery High School.
All right. This is one of many awards and recognitions tonight. Next up, Helen Afotinos, Administrator of Gifted Programs, will begin our recognition of the stock market Invest Right Spring winners.
Good evening, school board members and Dr. Bragan. Thank you for this opportunity to celebrate students. Every year, students in the iLead program participate in the Virginia Stock Market Game, and I'm thrilled to share that MCPS has several winners again this year. This program gives students $100,000 to invest throughout the school year and to invest in the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. Their investments mirror the daily gains and losses of the day's market. The top elementary team in the state of Virginia for the year-long game was won by Falling Branch students, and they grew their $100,000 to $125,000, $113.19. So ask them for some tips. This team was led by Mrs. Brenda Mash, and the team members are Gwen Herzog, Gavin Valines, and Watson Hughes. Participants also had the option to write an essay identifying how they would build a $10,000 diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, and/or mutual funds to save for the year 2033 using one of their stock market games investments. And Franklin Liu from Harding Avenue, led by Ms. Deanne Dickerson, has been named this year's state winner of the Invest Right competition. So the Board of Directors of the Virginia Council of Economic Education has invited these students to be recognized on Friday at the annual Stock Market Game State Awards Luncheon at the Federal Reserve Bank in Richmond. So I will be taking these students to Richmond on Friday. So I'd love to call all of these students and families up for you to recognize them. Can we get their parents and teachers up here too? Is that okay? Come on, parents. So parents can stand behind you.
All right, great, thank you. Next up, Adam Simpson, the Director of Secondary Education, will start our presentation for Seniors of the Month.
Good evening, school board members and Dr. Bragan. A very special highlight of our board meeting is the recognition of an outstanding senior from each of our 4 high schools. Photos and leadership profiles will be displayed on the screen during this presentation and will also be on display in the lobby of the central office. Our presentation format provides a snapshot of each senior, along with a quote from the teacher or administrator who nominated them for this recognition. In April, a few of our seniors were not able to attend due to their extremely busy schedules. So tonight, some of our schools will be recognizing for students from both April and May. Each principal will come forward to present in the following order, starting with David Hurd, principal of Auburn High School, then Chris Stewart, principal of Blacksburg High School, Shane Gwynn, principal of Christiansburg High School, and then Todd Lewis at Eastern Montgomery High School. Mr. Hurd.
Good evening, members of the board. Dr. Bragan. The May Senior of the Month for Auburn High School is Casey Rosenbaum, so if Casey and her family can come join me at the podium. Casey is an incredibly gifted and talented young lady, and these gifts cover a variety of areas. While she's an excellent student, this only covers part of her abilities. Casey excels athletically as a member of the cross country, the indoor track teams, the indoor track team and the outdoor track team, and the soccer team. Casey holds all Auburn High School records for any distance further than 1,600 meters. She has been chosen as the captain for both track teams as well as the cross-country team. She's a member of the National Beta Club, a member of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and the president of the FFA. She's a member of the Young Farmers through Virginia Farm Bureau. Casey has been selected as an outstanding CTE student at the school level, as well as a winner of the Rotary Club's Outstanding CTE Student Award, which was given to her just last evening. Her agriculture teacher says about Casey, she's been an asset to the CTE department at AHS. She has taken a wide variety of classes, including health and medical, nursing, agriculture, and robotics with plans to become a nurse. She's been the Reiner FFA president for several years and was on the state-winning and nationally ranked horse judging team. Casey is an exceptional leader with a humble and kind spirit who serves as an example to her peers. She's always willing to lend a helping hand, put in the work to reach her goals, and approaches everything with enthusiasm. Just listing all of Casey's activities makes me tired. Casey plans to attend Radford University to run track and cross country and study nursing. Congratulations on a job very well done.
Good evening, members of the board. Dr. Bragan. It is my privilege to present to you Blacksburg High School Senior of the Month. This evening, I'd like to recognize Evelyn Covey as the Blacksburg High School May Senior of the Month. I'd like to invite Evelyn and her family to come up and join me, please. I'd like to just take a moment and read a statement written by one of our staff members just highlighting the great student that Evelyn is. I am honored to speak on behalf of Evelyn Covey, a senior at Blacksburg High School, and a student I have been privileged to teach for the past 3 years. It is difficult to only highlight a few of Evelyn's accomplishments and standout characteristics. She is so hardworking, dedicated to her programs, consistently demonstrates a selfless spirit, and among my favorite of her attributes, her witty humor. I have been fortunate enough to watch Evelyn's leadership skills emerge in the classroom, which have been instrumental in our many fundraising and catering projects. Her organizational skills were integral to the success of the robotics tournament caterings over the past 2 years. She was always the first in the culinary lab and the last to leave. Evelyn is an asset to my class, and even though she portrays leadership skills, she is a team player as well, always willing to help others with any task. She is so deserving of the Student of the Month award. Congratulations, Evelyn.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Bragan. Thank you for this opportunity to highlight one of our senior students this evening. It is my pleasure to recognize our April Senior of the Month for Christiansburg High School as Miss Ava Landers. Ava is currently playing in the senior night soccer game for our girls soccer team at CHS this evening, so she will not be in attendance. When asking one of her teachers to describe Ava, they said, "I have enjoyed having Ava as both a student for online classes and an athlete in our soccer program. She has been a great presence and a high achiever in both. Ava has taken multiple DE classes through the virtual lab and has her lofty overall GPA shows, she's always focused on getting the most out of her academic opportunities. On the soccer field, she has been a valuable member of our varsity squad for 4 seasons and has become one of the top players in our region, winning multiple district and region honors, including Co-District Player of the Year for the 2023 season. Ava is a great example of what a student athlete should be, an excellent choice for Senior of the Month, and a terrific representative of CHS. Ava's future plans are to attend a 4-year college or university and pursue a degree in law. She would also like to continue playing soccer at the collegiate level if the opportunity presents itself. Congratulations, Ava." It is also my pleasure to now recognize our May Senior of the Month for Christiansburg High School as Carly Bush. Carly is also playing in the senior night soccer game for the girls soccer team this evening at CHS. When asking one of her teachers to describe Carly, they said, "Carly goes above and beyond to complete her assignments, but especially those related to yearbook, as she is currently the editor for this school year. She is dependable, helpful, and encouraging to new students on the yearbook team, and rarely, if ever, gets rattled when given an assignment, project, or deadline. Simply put, Carly is amazing. She participates in depth with class discussions, works diligently, is extremely consistent, and always brings a smile to our classroom. She has been one of the strongest leaders I've ever had in the Beta Club and continually motivates club members to accomplish tasks at the highest of levels. She will go on to do great things in her life, and we are excited to follow her journey. Carly's future plans are to attend Radford University and major in allied health sciences to pursue a career in athletic training. Congratulations, Carly."
Good evening, members of the school board and Dr. Bragan. It is an honor to be here this evening to recognize 2 Seniors of the Month for Eastern Montgomery High School. First, representing EMHS for April is Drew Smith. He's here with his family, and I asked him to come forward at this time. Drew is a student who, in addition to taking multiple DE and AP classes, has been dedicated to learning to weld, traveling to Christiansburg High School for 2 years for classes. Consequently, I'd like to read a quote from Chase Lowe, his welding instructor. "Drew is a fine young man who is conscientious about his work. He prepares to have a good weld long before he strikes an arc. When his welds don't go according to plan, he is able to adjust accordingly and learn from his mistakes. He is a generous young man who is always willing to help others. I can't help but notice how Mr. Lowe's statement seems to be a metaphor for Drew's character as well." Please join me in congratulating Drew Smith.
Next, it gives me great pleasure to recognize our May Senior of the Month, Tyler Atkinson. Tyler is here with his family also, and I invite them to come forward at this time. Tyler's art teacher, Kelly Smith Price, wrote the following about Tyler. Tyler Atkinson is one of the most personable students I have ever had the pleasure to teach. He is a thoughtful and kind person. His sense of humor has been fun for me to be around, and he's very much an old soul. He's extremely creative when he chooses to be in the arts and also in woodworking. After working with him for the past 4 years, I've come to know him well and believe him to be a fine young man. He's an active member at EMHS and has not only participated, but is also lettered in football, golf, and baseball. He was also the FFA chapter president. In my opinion, Tyler is an exceptionally bright, creative thinker and exemplifies a level of understanding of how to use the visual arts to communicate, and he's also highly skilled in woodworking. Tyler plans to pursue his career with A1 Heating and Cooling. I have no doubt that with his skill set Tyler has accomplished and his impeccable personality, Tyler will go on to bigger and better things. EMHS certainly was made better with Tyler there in our attendance at our school, and he will surely be missed. I wish Tyler the best. Congratulations, Tyler.
Okay, great. Congrats to all those seniors. Next up, Mark Husband, our Director of CTE and Virtual Learning, will begin our recognition of the EHSL Academic State Champions.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Bragan. Thank you for the opportunity to continue recognizing students this evening. Over the past few years, we've recognized a number of state champions for the Virginia High School League in athletic competitions. We're excited to expand those recognitions today into one of our academic state champions, the Blacksburg High School Scholastic Bowl team. Here to say a couple more words and to introduce the coach and these students is once again Blacksburg High School Principal, Mr. Chris Stewart.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our head scholastic ball coach, Mary Louise Moss, so she can come up and tell you about the outstanding season that our students had and what lies ahead for them.
Had to bring the hardware. Good evening, board and Dr. Bragan. It's my pleasure to recognize the efforts of the BHS Scholastic Bowl team. A lot of people don't know we're there. We're kind of under the radar, but we practice 4 hours a week. This year we competed in 18 competitions, some of them full-day Saturday events. From most of them, we brought home a first or a second place trophy, sometimes both. We did VHSL rounds throughout the spring part of the semester. We had a very good record, but we really shone in the postseason where at our sectionals, regionals, and at the state tournament, we were undefeated in 14 rounds of postseason play. These students have done MCPS very, very proud. If you don't know what Scholastic Bowl is, the students through independent study and much practice study everything from fine arts, current events, history, math, science. They don't know what's coming next, so they have to know it all. It's my great pleasure to watch them enter the room as strangers in the fall and become lifelong friends, amazing teammates, and really vicious competitors. So I'm very glad to be on their side. Our season continues at the end of the month. We're going to Atlanta for the national competition. We'll play against around 200 schools and we'll see how we do. But these kids really deserve every accolade. They are leaders both at school and of course in Quiz Bowl and do all of MCPS very, very proud. So thank you very much.
Come on up now, don't be shy.
Oh, Xavier, come on up.
Can you introduce the students?
Yeah, so this is Xavier Gitry and and Ethan Ryrie and Luke West, just some of our over 20 kids who participated this season.
All right, and next up, Adam Simpson again will begin our presentation for student recognition of BHS student research.
Good evening. The DEAP research program at Blacksburg High School provides numerous opportunities for students to share their research outside of class at the local, state, national, and even international levels. BHS is proud to recognize 12 students who have recently received honors for their research projects presented at the Virginia Blue Ridge Highlands Regional Science Fair and the Virginia Tech Undergraduate Research Symposium. Several of these students have qualified to advance to state and national competitions. And at this time, I will now turn it over to BHS teacher, Ms. Catherine Davis, to tell you more about the program and the accomplishment of these impressive students.
Good evening, member of the boards, Dr. Bragan. It's great to be here tonight with my amazing students, and I'd like them to go ahead and start working their way up here with us as well. Our research program at BHS is not just a BHS program. It's open to any student in the county who wants to join us. We haven't been able to get that pull in just yet, but I'm hoping as more people learn about it, we'll be able to get some more kids. But in our research class, our program is a dual enrolled program through New River Community College and is also part of the AP Capstone Diploma program, where our students design an independent research project that is something that they want to learn about, and they spend the year learning about it. And then they present their findings in a number of different ways. They write a paper that averages about 15 pages. They produce a poster presentation, which you may have seen in the lobby, and then they also put together a presentation that shows what they did for conference format. So we have presented this year thus far at Longwood University at the Junior Science and Humanities Symposium, sponsored by the Department of Defense. They've been at the Highland Science Fair in Radford, where we have 2 grand award winners, which is the highest honor, and will be advancing to the International Science Fair in LA next week. They have presented just this past weekend at the Virginia Junior Academy of Science, which is virtual again this year, hopefully next year back in person. We have had a presentation in oral defense similar to what master's students sit through. And we have also had them present at Virginia Tech the 26th, whenever that was. It was the day before prom. So we were very, very busy that day because some of them are also class officers that were responsible for prom. So we have 5 different ways that students can earn credit through the program with the different things. Lots of great things you guys can read about what our former students have said and the competitions and symposium. But the most important part are my amazing researchers. Grace isn't able to be here with us tonight, but she was looking at the study of bobwhite quail as an indicator species for conservation efforts in Virginia, looking at how we can redesign farmland so that it is beneficial to both agriculture, livestock, and conservation efforts. We have Xavier Guitry, who has been doing a project on birds, and he's been looking at how methylmercury contamination affects the foraging behaviors of the birds. And he is one of our students who will be going to LA next week for the International Science Fair. We have Sid Jacobek, who has looked at simulations of binary star systems and how the orbits of different planets and different star masses and planet masses interact to find planetary orbits that would be stable and be able to sustain life. And then magically, just this past week, there was yet another paper published in a scientific journal on a star system that was a binary star system that was exactly what Sid was modeling. We have Sage Lammers, who has been looking at the relationship between underground biomass and the sequestration of carbon so that we can help plant native forbs and grasses that will help decrease climate change and protect our environment. And Sage was one of our folks who was just at the State Science Fair with Dr. Gitchery a few weeks ago. We also had Min Young Lee, who is looking at the causes of spontaneous firing in cardiac muscle and how ion concentration affects that. So we're looking at ways that we can potentially prevent heart attacks. Alexander Lee is here with us tonight, and Alex's project is looking at the interactions between different vehicles, self-monitoring systems for all of those cars, you know, like when you're driving with your whatever safety systems enhanced and it just stops for no apparent reason. He is looking at the interferences with some very complex Fourier transforms to calculate how we can best reduce that. So if you want to know more about that, ask him, because it is some college high-level mathematics. Isabella Liu is with us tonight, and she was looking at the effect of AI and how it is going to affect the labor market and projections for long-term growth. We've got Radia Liu, who is one of our independent researchers. She wasn't able to fit the class into her schedule, but she was looking at how the impact of things like ChatGPT and artificial intelligence impact the biases on minority health outcomes that are available on the platforms. And it is scary, the disparities that she was able to find. Ethan Ryrie, who is already a familiar face for you guys this evening, is looking at how parasitic worm secretions could possibly prevent anaphylaxis. And he tested his own blood to see if he could prevent his body's immune response, not his body. He didn't expose himself to the peanut allergen, but exposed his blood to see if he could stop an anaphylactic response from the secretions of parasitic worms living in one's intestines. We had to simulate a few things, but it was quite the journey. Shreya Sridhar is one of our researchers who is looking at engineering engineering bacteria to eat microplastics and break down and increase the degradation of plastic pollutions. And, you know this face as well. Li Shu is looking at how the outflow from California is going to impact the economic situation of the neighboring states. So when people are jumping ship from California and going to other places, how are we improving their economies? And so we've got Kyler Williams, who wasn't able to be with us tonight, and he was looking at how he could design a supportive insole for soccer players specifically, because the different movements affect how their performances are affected versus an insole for a runner, for example. And there's a video that is, I think, rivaling the CMS video that we had for the phone policy. I won't play it for you right now, but it is from the Virginia Tech Undergraduate Research Symposium, where we also had award winners for their presentations amongst all of the undergraduate researchers. So I am just over the moon proud of these kids. They have worked so hard, and their research rivals what any undergraduate researcher does. It's the equivalent of what a master's student does in one school year, as opposed to what a master's student takes 2 years to do. So I can't say enough great things, and I appreciate the opportunity to recognize them tonight.
Okay, great. That concludes our awards and honors portion. We're going to take a brief break to thank our honorees for being here tonight. All right, everybody, we're back. Our next agenda item is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, parents, employees, and community members about education matters in this community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start our public address. We have the option to extend in 30-minute increments, which Ms. Osborne will remind us of. If there are additional speakers after 90 minutes, the board will continue with their business meeting and hold one additional 30-minute session at the end of the business meeting. The clock continues through applause and disruptions. The more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers who get to address the board. I will call each speaker up by name in the order that they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not respond to speakers during public address. The screens will show when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when time is up. Please state your name and the area of the county that you live in. And the first speaker is Jeff Fahrenkopf, followed by Kenneth Hubbard.
Greetings, school board members and the Montgomery County residents. I'm Jeff Fahrenkopf. I'm from the Childress portion of Montgomery County. So I would like to address the topic of this social and emotional learning curriculum. So we understand the county is trying to deal with the mental health issues seen in the school systems. So a new social and emotional learning curriculum is being considered to mitigate health concerns in the public schools. SEL curriculum was introduced by Governor Northam's administration and the Virginia Department of Education in 2020, but is not a mandated curriculum. It's optional for Montgomery County to implement. Clearly, some students have mental health issues that need to be addressed, but implementing an across-the-board curriculum that affects 100% of all students for the sake of the need of a few appears to be another overreach and more tyranny of the minority approach. Why put all students through a curriculum that involves serious time sinks, cost sinks, teacher-student energy sink, as well as parental value challenges when a more direct approach to individual students should be deployed? The SEL presentations, again, have nice-sounding words, images, and perhaps intent. But as we have seen with past approaches of Common Core, CRT, DEI, SEL is another Trojan horse, if we still teach this in history classes. This progressive left approach will be competing with or taking the driver's wheel of social and emotional learning and values out of 100% of parents' hands and putting it into the hands of the school system. Just allow the school system to focus on education. Subjects like math, science, history, reading, writing, English, normal sports, and particular skill developments. Isn't that enough to do? The state of Massachusetts did this and now has the highest performing K-12 grades in the nation. Let's recall that Governor Northam's DOE administration has a poor track record for model policies. This SEL curriculum will surely have its hands where they do not belong, and our children in the clutches of another social experiment. I urge you not to adopt this new SEL curriculum. I know that's unpopular to the board and to the presentations, but please consider the overreach and the tyranny of the minority and deal with mental health issues in other ways instead of an across-the-board blanket 100% impact on all students. There's a need, but is this the solution? Some of you know in your heart that it is not. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Kenneth Hubbard, followed by Kimberly Williamson.
Hello, board members. Thank you for this time. My name's Ken Hubbard. I'm from Christiansburg. Been living here 14 years. Looks like some of you are parents, right? Grandparents too. I have a grandchild, 11 years old now, but when she was 4 years old, the stove was on, fireplace. She goes, Grandpa, stove's hot? I go, yeah, stove's hot. Will it hurt? I go, yeah, it'll hurt. She looks at me, smiles, touches that stove. Wah! Wah! Starts crying, screaming, puts her finger in her mouth. Stops, looks at me defiantly, puts her finger back on the stove. The reason I tell you this is that, and you all have children, you know that you cannot make them obey. You can't make them be obedient. You can't make them be good. And you also, as educators, you know you can't make them learn, right? We got this idea. So today I'm here to speak about your decision to demote the principal of Blacksburg High School and his immediate supervisor in the wake of that murder-suicide. I think the claim of the law firm was a systematic or institutional failure. Don't buy it. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. Aren't you doing the best job you can? You can't stop somebody from being bad. You can't do it. It's just an apparent failure. You can't make the children learn. The idea that's being presented out there in the world is that across the nation, we have institutional educational failure. Children, SAT scores are down. There's other factors involved. And you're not the ones responsible. You're doing your best job you can. All children don't have an A grade. Institutional failure. You can't say that. So this is what I'm asking you to do, is change the perception. Change the narrative out there. Rescind your decision to demote these people. Make it publicly known that your job is to try and teach the child the best you can. And also tell everybody you can't stop a child from being bad. Change that narrative. Get out there. Don't take the law firm. Their job is to look for blame shifting. This tragedy is not your fault. And neither is it the teacher, neither it is the administrators, but by you demoting them, you're putting a tacit recognition out there that somehow it could have been stopped. So I'm just asking you to consider this and think about the message you're sending by demoting these people. I know there's more involved in it, but the idea is you cannot.
Thank you, sir.
You cannot change. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Kimberly Williamson, followed by Kim Bowman.
I'm Kimberly Williamson from Christiansburg. I am certainly not wanting to steal the thunder from the presenter for the social emotional learning curriculum feedback that you will see and hear in a little while. But I thought that the feedback data in the PDF attached to the agenda is very telling. The feedback data is presented a little differently this time. To the presenter, I personally would like to see the graphical and percent breakdowns of the agree-disagree spectrum as before. However, the data given in answer to the question of the appropriateness of the content for the given grade levels gives a very telling perspective. It seems that all responding community members, meaning those exclusive from parents, employees, and students, as well as the one student and the one other person who responded, all resoundingly said they strongly disagree with the appropriateness of the content, while parents' responses were averaged at neutral. So some parents approved, while a seeming equal number of parents disapproved. Contrast the results I just mentioned with the category of school employees, with a 4.3 out of 5 average score. By far the category most supportive and approving of the content. School employees want SEL, and particularly this curriculum, taught more than any other category of respondents. This should give everyone a moment's pause. There seems to be a significant disconnect between the desires of school employees and the desires of everyone else. Why is that? I also recall that at the April 16 meeting, the presenter said that based upon feedback from neighboring school divisions that SEL, quote, could be controversial or it could cause offense to some families or some parents. That's the end of the quote. This would be because of its underlying ties to Marxism 101, which is the divisive tactic of identity politics and critical race theory. So I implore all of you to think long and hard about the potential negative disruption to the Montgomery County community of pushing the SEL curriculum on our students, and ask you to vote no on something that clearly only school employees and at most only half of the responding parents, but none of the responding larger community members, nor the student or other respondents think is a good idea. I also implore you to remove your own mandate to teach SEL from the MCPS strategic plan altogether. SEL and its sibling critical race theory have absolutely no place in this school system.
Thank you. Next up is Kim Bowman.
Good evening. First, I would like to say thank you for implementing the gun safety program. I appreciate that. As someone who lost a nephew at a very early age from a gunshot. But I will say, over the last 3 years, I've been coming to these meetings pretty regularly. And unfortunately, I've heard countless stories of bullying, even rape, assault, reading of really sexually explicit material in classrooms, and most recently, the murder-suicide. Such a tragedy. And I don't in any way mean to put personal blame for that on anybody here today. But, you know, one thing that each of these things have had in common, either from the mouth of the victim or the parent, is a failure to protect the victim. And the news did call it gross negligence and systemic failure. And I think that, you know, because of these things being accumulative, that there has been damage inflicted upon this board and upon our community. And I'm asking you guys to do the right thing and to be forthright with that report and to bring the truth forward and to work to build trust back in this board and in the school system. And the only way that that can happen is if you guys face the facts and begin to make those known to the public and put common sense practices in place to prevent these failures from continuing. Otherwise, people are going to work to replace every single one of you. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. And that concludes public address. We'll move on to our consent items. If no one wishes to remove an item out of consent, we will consider these items approved. Okay, great. Do I have a motion to acknowledge receipt of the financial summary report for April 2024?
Second.
Ms. Franklin and Dr. Roundtree. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Goodrich?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the payment of the bills as presented?
Second.
Ms. Franklin and Ms. Purcell, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, we're now into our business meeting, and we'll start off with a report from the superintendent.
Thank you, Chair Hudson. I have a few things to mention. One is it's Teacher Appreciation Week. And I'd just like to take a moment to thank all of our teachers and our educators for what they do on a daily basis. You know, we work really hard to put our policies and practices into place and hire the right people, put our administrators in place and our curriculums and all that. And at the end of the day, the people that bring this to life every day for our children to help enable them to have the foundational skills they need to be all they're capable of becoming are our teachers. And it shouldn't just be at one point of the year where we thank them and acknowledge them, but this is Teacher Appreciation Week. So I personally, as school superintendent, want to say how proud I am to lead a division with so many dedicated and passionate and compassionate professionals. And I just simply want to say thank you. Along those lines, I had the great fortune last night to be in Richmond at the governor's executive mansion, where they recognized the Region Teachers of the Year. And our Region 6 Teacher of the Year happened to be our own teacher at Blacksburg High School, our agricultural teacher who teaches welding, Mrs. Candace Carrier. And it was just a great event to see our governor and his wife take time to honor educators, spend time with the recipients of these awards, spend time with their families, talk to them, find out what educators feel, ask me personally what I thought about education and where we were going and with the budget and all those things. And irrespective of political party, I commend the governor for taking time to show how much they value education and support it. So that was really a great event for me to be a part of, along with our Region 6 Teacher of the Year, Candace Carrier. She should be congratulated not only for winning that award, but how she represented our region in Richmond yesterday. I was very proud. Another point of pride is the exemplar award that was received by Harding Avenue Elementary School. They received an award from the Virginia Board of Education, one of the highest achievements award it's called, one of only 37 schools in the Commonwealth. And to get this award, you have to have assessment results for schools that exceed board-established performance requirements. So great amount of respect and credit to the teachers, administrators, and professionals in that building for all that they've done to ensure that those scores were where they are and our children are provided with the greatest opportunities to be successful. That's something we should be very proud of. One of only 37 schools in the entire Commonwealth, Harding Avenue Elementary School. Congratulations. Another thing we do here at Montgomery County Public Schools we should be really proud of is our Graduate with a Plan program. As we approach graduation weekend, I'd like to highlight one of the unique programs we have. We believe that high school graduation is not the end of the journey, but rather the beginning of the next chapter of our students' lives. To that end, we encourage our students from the earliest elementary years to graduate with a plan. We provide every senior with a T-shirt in their school's colors where they share their post-graduation plans, when they share their post-graduation plans with their school counselor. They may be entering the workforce, they may choose military service, they may enroll in a trade school, or they may pursue higher education options. The possibilities are vast and endless for our students. We are pleased to share a Class of 2024 T-shirt with each of our school board members for your support along this journey. We would also like to recognize Isabella Previet, a Class of 2024 BHS senior who designed this year's logo. Additionally, for those students who do choose the higher education option, Montgomery County Public Schools will also pay for up to 2 college applications per senior. This year's class of 677 seniors submitted 287 applications across 4 high schools. We certainly understand that many colleges do not require application fees and that some of the families qualify for fee waivers, but we would never want a student to be discouraged from applying for college due to a fee, and we are proud to be a part of this process. I thank the Montgomery County School Board for their commitment to this, and congratulations to all on the class of 2024. And lastly, Board Chair, I would just like to say for our community, as well as all of you, part of the evaluation process for myself is to get feedback from our stakeholders. And we're going to put forth on our website, and I'll try to communicate it out through social media, a survey to ask all of you, how am I doing? You know, to quote the affable Mayor Ed Koch from New York, for those old enough to remember, he had that book, How Am I Doing? And he would ask people. Well, I'm really interested for all of you to share your perspective on how I'm doing, what I can do differently, what I can do better, and how we can improve as a school division. So I encourage everyone to take the survey. I will take that information and reflect upon that and use it as I present to the school board my own reflection on this year's performance. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dr. Bragan. Next up is our school nutrition RFP. The RFP committee has submitted a recommendation to award a contract to Sodexo Schools. Do I have a motion to authorize the superintendent and/or their designee to negotiate and to execute a contract under the terms outlined in the request for proposal with a start date of July 1st, 2024, or sooner for 1 year, with 4 one-year renewals with the committee's recommended food service management company?
Second.
Motion from Ms. Franklin and a second by Dr. Roundtree. Any discussion?
During the negotiations, I'd just like to make sure that there's food options for people with diverse dietary needs. It was mentioned during their Selexis presentation to us when we asked about vegetarian options. They mentioned that there's salads on the lunch menu, and a salad is not an appropriate meal on a daily basis at lunch. There needs to be some kind of protein in the mix as well, and fat contents.
Will do. Understood.
Board, anything else? All right. Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin,
Yes.
Dr. Gitchery.
Yes.
Ms. Parton,
Yes.
Ms. Purcell,
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree,
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, next up, the superintendent designee signature authorization. Situations may occur when the division superintendent is out of the office at a time when his or her signature is needed. On such occasions, persons other than the superintendent may be authorized by the local school board to sign documents. Do I have a motion to appoint the assistant superintendent as the superintendent designee?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Purcell and a second by Ms. Bond. Any discussion, board? Okay. Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin. No. Dr. Gitchery,
Yes.
Ms. Parton,
Yes.
Ms. Purcell,
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree,
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed.
Motion carries. Next up is the grant application for the Project Serve. Do I have a motion to approve the grant proposal, Project Serve?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Bond, second by Ms. Franklin. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin,
Yes.
Dr. Gitchery,
Yes.
Ms. Parton, Ms. Purcell,
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree,
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Next up is the grant proposal for Eastern Montgomery Elementary School Literacy Implementation Support Grant. Do I have a motion to approve the grant proposal EMES Literacy Implementation Support Grant?
So moved.
Dr. Roundtree and Ms. Franklin, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin,
Yes.
Dr. Gitchery,
Yes.
Ms. Parton,
Yes.
Ms. Purcell,
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree,
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Next up, the Special Education Annual Plan application was provided to the board for first review on April 16th, 2024. Special Education Annual Plan is brought back for approval tonight. Do I have a motion to approve the Special Education Annual Plan application as presented?
Second.
Ms. Franklin and Dr. Roundtree. Any discussion?
May I ask a question? So I appreciate I asked some questions from the Superintendent Bragan about the plan before and got some information. I appreciate that information from Dr. Walker. But I do have a question about the annual plan. I know for the Gifted Advisory Committee about the Gifted Program and about their planning. So I know my understanding is the application is a distilled form of the annual plan, that it's not the plan itself. Is that correct?
I believe so, but if Dr. Walker would want to comment on that, because you have more expertise in that area than I do.
Turn your mic on, sir.
Off of funding.
There you go. There we go.
Yeah. The application is a proposed plan for the upcoming school year based off of funding numbers from the previous year.
Right. So that's the grant application.
Yes.
Right. But is there not a plan for the division that's separate from that application, a fuller plan? Because I know, for instance, for the gifted program, there's a more elaborate plan. And so I was a little curious because I know, for instance, the plan, you only have like 957 characters to describe the plan. Right.
Yes.
So is there not a plan developed for the division that's more comprehensive than the 957 characters?
We have a department plan that's spelled out more in detail as what we expect to do. The application, the DOE does not require that plan as attached to that application. That's their format. There has been discussions or suggestions about the format of the plan to allow more expansive boxes or sections so more information can be put in there, but that is the plan that we cannot change. I mean, that format, we cannot change that format at all. But we do have a department plan that we outline what we plan to do for the upcoming school year.
And do you share that with the school board at all?
That's an internal plan. It's a document for our office, but there is not an expansive one that we provide for the division.
And
certainly can do that if you would like to do that.
Is that unusual? Because I know, for instance, that the Special Education Advisory Committee is supposed to review that plan, and my understanding is that it's to be like the board is supposed to be informed on that plan.
Yeah, they review the actual application that you guys have. That's what they review. And they review the updates, the same update that you have. Everything that you have is what they reviewed on the 25th of March.
So they don't review the department's plan?
They have. I have proposed that to them at last year's meeting, and but I have not provided it at this year's meeting. But it was not a plan that it's approved. But I just provided that information so they can know what we are doing as a school division and what we plan to do with any funding. But it's not a formalized plan that is put up for approval.
Yeah. Is that usual?
Yeah, that's pretty typical, yes, because the actual plan that is presented to the DOE is based on how the funding is spent.
Right, that part I understand, but
Yes.
that a division would only have an internal plan and not share it with
Right.
stakeholders and get a review from the Special Education Advisory Committee and then present that to the board. Because I know in some divisions, that advisory committee is making very regular reports to school boards, but I couldn't find evidence of that kind of reporting of a school board advisory committee to the school board. Whereas I know with the GAC, they do make reports to the school board.
Right, we have an annual report to the superintendent at the end of every school year that's presented at that time.
From that
There's
committee.
not a quarterly update report that's presented. Certainly, if that's what the board would like, we certainly can, do that, present that to the SEAC committee and have them develop that, if that would answer your questions.
Yeah, because usually those advisory committees are school board committees and then report to the school board and don't just report internally.
Right.
I'm trying to understand why we don't open it up to more stakeholders so they know what our plan is for the division.
Certainly, we certainly can do that, and that's something that we can put on the agenda for the next meeting for the SEAC.
Or just, I think it's a good practice.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
So, aren't some
committees required to report to the board, and others are required to report to the superintendent and not to the board. That's how the structure is set up.
That's my understanding, yes.
So is the special ed committee supposed to report to the superintendent or to the board?
To the superintendent.
Right. So, but if the board chooses to hear that, then we can do that. But that's how committees are set up.
Right, I thought it was a school board committee, and that's why it's able to report to the school board on a regular basis. I don't know that it's if it's a superintendent's committee, but that should be in the code. So you should know. Is it a superintendent's committee or is it a school board committee?
It's a superintendent's. We report to the superintendent. Anything the report goes to the superintendent, and any updates goes to the superintendent. In the beginning of the school year, the board does approve the SEAC membership, and also there is we fill out information regarding the goals for the SEAC committee, but there is not a ongoing report to the board about what you're asking. So that goes to the superintendent. Any updates or any suggestions from the SEAC goes to the superintendent and the superintendent can present that to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Gitry, that's something we could look into, and if we want to have more reports to the school board about that kind of thing. And, Dr. Walker and I have been talking about some of the things we want to work on in our special education practices and in the division and things we could enhance our students' performance and some of the things that have been mentioned previously. Again, I've only been in the Commonwealth a year and a half, but I do think that's a board committee that we would share that with the school board from the VDOE. But I'll find out for sure so we speak accurately on that.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why the school board does approve memberships for these committees when they're school board committees.
So at one point, a couple of years ago, there was a matrix that was presented to us that said which committee reported to who and when. So if that can be bought back up, it might make it real.
Okay.
We'll find that information.
We can find that.
We could share that with the school board.
I guess the question is, if it's not currently a school board committee, is that something we want to consider changing? It sounds like there might be some appetite to at least have that conversation.
Agreed.
Okay. Let's follow up on that after we have all
I
the answers.
don't disagree, but especially in light of what we have seen in data, to have that. But I'm just saying there's a structure.
You got to get it right.
And just, if we want to see it, we get to see it.
Yep. Be happy to. Okay, any other questions or discussion, board? Motion and a second already. Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitry?
Abstain.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 abstain.
Motion carries. Next up, the federal grant application review. The federal program grants are provided to the board for approval. Do I have a motion to approve the federal programs grants as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Purcell and second by Ms. Franklin. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Next up, the social emotional learning curriculum adoptions were provided to the board for first review on April 16th. They are brought back for approval this evening with updated information as requested by the board. Do I have a motion to approve the social emotional learning curriculum adoptions as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Franklin and Dr. Roundtree, any discussion?
So for the rankings inside of the presentation, 1 strongly disagree and 5 strongly agree. What was 3 defined as? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, I'm going to be voting no, just because I've been reading and learning information about this type of curriculum, and some of it has come out to be not so positive for our students. So although I most definitely support anyone in our system that has social or emotional needs to reach out, but I just can't support it as a site-wide curriculum.
So can you share which portions you think shouldn't be, why it shouldn't be?
Just some of the things that I've been reading. I think like the article we got today, I truly, in one of the emails, I agree with that sometimes the thinking of, someone who might not have, someone who suffers with those needs, students that have those needs, but then they're learning about it, develop having those needs. And I do sometimes, maybe the glass being half empty instead of half full. And so that's the part of that I do struggle with. So when I read that article, I truly, it hit home for me. So.
We'll go ahead and go around so everybody get a chance to talk. Ms. Parton?
Yes, so I'm going to be voting no as well for several reasons. I've done a lot of reading and research on this curriculum in the last couple weeks, and there are some goals that are decent within that curriculum. However, from the points that I took out of it, where it deals a lot with talking about the mental health, which is extremely important to me, always has been and always will be, but the suggestiveness of the anxiety, fear, and sadness, and while I still think it's important that we deal with these issues with our students, I just feel like with this curriculum, there's a risk of our children becoming a little bit too focused on the negative emotions, and that would be promoting a victim mentality, and I don't think that's something that we definitely don't want our kids to be promoted to. Some of the goals are decent, I said. However, if we're talking about the curriculum as a whole, I think it focuses also too much on their actions, thoughts, and feelings to the point where it could be obsessive. Even if it's not, some of them I know are, but it can promote obsessiveness. So that's just a couple of it. I also think children should be put where they can be taught ways that they are developmentally appropriate for their age and respect to their mental health as well. I also feel like it can be perceived as and insulting to our parents and our families, because we are stepping into boundaries that I feel like the school should be very careful as to what we step into with some of the curriculum in this SEL curriculum. And I feel like that it touches on some religious aspects and some political aspects could be brought up that I feel like we have no business meddling in. And I also feel like the article in the New York Times that we were sent to today, I fully agree with that 100%. It stated, and I quote, that there are trials that were done at schools based on this curriculum, and they were focused on, they didn't pass, and they needed to be rerouted. The curriculum wasn't a success. Yeah, and the students ended up, it showed that the students technically did not come out in better mental state or any happier than students or peers that did not take part in this curriculum. And it also showed that some students even came out in worse shape than they were when they went in. So those are just a couple of reasons that I will not be voting yes for this. I will be voting no.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Guthrie.
So I'm coming in midstream here. So there have been multiple comments about the politics, and I don't know enough, but I do have a question about how it fits into our curriculum. There was, during the presentation, a lot of it was focused on process. Is this division-wide, and how is it going to be integrated into the curriculum?
It is division-wide, but you want to speak to that, Dr. Jason Garrison? Come on up.
You could have answered, Dr. Bragan, but it is K-12. That's how it's specified in the strategic plan. As we've had discussions with our principals at principals meetings in how would they implement it, how would they work it into their schedule, it does look like it's probably going to go into those times, like those IE periods, those things like that, where it is intervention or extension periods. We've also had discussions where we've said, in the initial phase, as was said by one of our speakers, it's not necessarily required by VDOE. So, schools can begin to explore that material. And the first year, it's not a hard, you're going to get 40 minutes every day. It may be something that's once or twice a week at one school, just once a week at another school, as we begin to get comfortable and see how it works in the schedule.
So it's approval for division-wide, but you're not implementing it division-wide uniformly?
It would be, yes, sir. The strategic plan asks for a social-emotional learning curriculum, K-12, across MCPS.
Okay, because that's one of the questions that I have, was how it was going to be integrated, because you raised that as an issue in your initial presentation about how does it fit into our schedule, our current schedule.
Sure. Those were, we already operate very full days. And we certainly know for teachers, and we certainly know for other staff members, any new initiative is a new initiative to fit in the window of the day.
Great, thank you very much. I mean, I'd be curious to hear from Ms. Franklin, who seems enthusiastic about the place of SEL, the rationale for it, and I have to admit to my ignorance on the history within the division and the call for it.
Ms. Franklin?
Okay, so first of all, just because I made the recommendation to adopt, doesn't necessarily mean how enthusiastic I am about something. Sometimes it's just because other members don't speak up, and I want to move the meeting along. So I believe any tool that we can use to help our children understand those themselves and those around them is valuable to the district. Helping other students recognize and advocate for folks who may not be able to advocate for themselves, I think is important. And actually, it's something that we ask our students to do to help support each other when there are needs, to be able to talk about what it's like, for example, to be an African-American student in Montgomery County Schools, and to have a safe time to be able to do that, I think is an advantage for everyone. So these are the reasons why. So it's very unfortunate that there are some folks who don't believe, just because you may be a minority population, that learning about you or how you feel or how you cope with things is not valued. So those are the main reasons. Plus, in our strategic planning, which was hundreds of people who came together from all stakeholders in this community, these were the things that were identified to be key focuses for this district for then the next 6 years. And to just throw out tools that have been processed through committees to help with those goals, I think is a disservice to, and I mean hundreds of people, who gave input to that plan. So that's why I'm in favor of anything that's going to help broaden our students' insight to themselves and to others.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yeah, so I'm interested in.
Turn your mic on, bro.
Sorry.
Yep. There you go.
There we go. Finally turned on. I'm interested in some of the details of the survey. I mean, parents are either neutral or they're split 50-50. Employees are leaning slightly towards this. We had one student respond, and other, and 9 community members. What was the distribution of community members? All the community members responded 1. Other responded 1. Students also responded 1. So, for whether or not the content is sufficient. So that was for whether or not the content was appropriate for grade levels. Whether or not the content was sufficient. The student responded 3. Parents, again, were neutral. Employees were slightly greater than neutral. Community members, 9 of them, but slightly greater than 1, pretty much the same as 1. Other one response. So I don't know what we're supposed to decipher from this. Parents are neutral, employees want it. In my opinion, teaching kids about how to react to their feelings is a good thing. Teaching them that there are a variety of feelings is a good thing to know. You shouldn't have to be aware that sometimes you're sad and sometimes you have bad thoughts, and you should go and get help when you have those thoughts. We hide this stuff a lot in our communities. Historically, over the years we've been trying to come out with that this is not these thoughts and behaviors are not necessarily non-normal, and it's okay to go and get help when you have them. I'll be voting yes.
Mr. Purcell?
Before the implementation of the STEM program at the elementary school level as one of the specialties, students would have time with the guidance counselor. They would go as a class, meet with the guidance counselor, who would talk through with them some things that I think are maybe not exactly the same as at this SEL curriculum, but similar. And when STEM was implemented, I thought that was in lieu of that time with guidance, I thought that was a real loss, especially as we were just coming out of COVID lockdown and students were having an incredibly hard time understanding themselves, working with each other, and navigating the challenges of life. And I think we as board members see that to the extreme level sometimes when we have to hear about certain student issues. I think that this is a real positive step for MCPS, and I support it. And I think it's really important for students to learn things about conflict resolution, why they might make decisions or have certain emotions, how they understand how they perceive the world or how others might perceive them. And ultimately, it will make them more engaged learners in the other things that we need to provide for them and that they need to learn. So thank you, Mr. Garrettson, for putting all this together, and I also will be voting yes.
Okay. I'll allow some comments in here. I mean, from my perspective, I guess 2 comments. One, as Penny noted, it's in our strategic plan, right? So this is something that we said we were going to do with a lot of work and input from the community. So now it's before us, and to not to do it seems counter to what the board at that point, at least, agreed they wanted to do when they approved the plan. So, but with all the things that we're seeing with our students, so many mental health and anger management and focus and discipline, all the things that we deal with every week, it seems like. As my colleagues mentioned, there's not much that we can do as a division. A lot of that needs to come from the home, but this is something that we can do. And it might not fix everything, but I see it as a positive step in a good direction, so. All right, any other comments before we vote? All right. Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
No.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
No.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
5 in favor, 2 opposed.
Motion carries. All right, next up, the ELA elementary curriculum adoption was provided to the board for first review on April 16th. Is brought back for approval this evening along with updated information requested by the school board. Tricia Metzel, administrator of the English Language Arts and Reading Intervention, will begin our presentation when we'll be available for questions.
Good evening, board. Dr. Bregan. I just wanted to go through some of the things that you requested at our last meeting, some of the feedback that we got from the teachers. And so today we're just going to go over that additional feedback and then go over the final recommendation from the ELA textbook committee. Some of the considerations that were brought back to the committee asked that they go back and speak to the teachers and address some of the things that you had mentioned, professional development, cost of the programs, other things that are being implemented in the division for next school year, the pacing, scope and sequence, implementation, access to materials, supplements for the curriculum, pros and cons of each curriculum, and then again, the previous data from our previous meeting from the committee. And the committee results are as you see here. I've also attached the agenda and the teachers' responses, the committee members' responses. And as you can see, all 33 members of the committee responded with 60.6 or 60 6/10% going for benchmark advance and 39 4/10% going for amplify CKLA.
I do want to say thank you for providing this information for us. It definitely kind of lays everything out a little bit better to help us
Yep, my pleasure.
make a decision tonight. So I guess open it up for questions. Board, who wants to start?
I don't have any questions, but thank you. And yay, that's kind of what I wanted to see.
Ms. Parton?
Yeah, so thank you as well for this information and for coming back with stuff that we've asked for. I did have something, you may not know the answer for sure on this, just curious though. So there was, I think there was something provided as far as training. I want to say, I think that I heard for benchmark and for amplify. Do the ones who are saying that they want amplify, what was the percentage that you got to show up for benchmark and those who went to both to truly access the true differences between the two as far as the sessions, like
The vendor presentation?
Yes. Mhm.
We had an overwhelming amount at the Amplify, and no one participated in the benchmark vendor presentations.
Okay, so the ones who are opposing benchmark didn't even show up to see what that workshop consisted of or pertained to compare it to amplify.
On that day, yes.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Is it true, though, that the ELA teachers had already been trained in benchmark advance? That's already happened, right?
They had had exposure to it, yes, in
Training,
January.
right? So they wouldn't necessarily need to go see the vendor's presentation if they had already been trained. Would that account for perhaps why they didn't go to the benchmark?
That's a possibility, yes.
So I thank you so much for going back to the committee. I'm really struggling because people feel very strongly on one side or the other. One of the things I'd like to get a little bit of clarification is that it seemed that one of the factors that really fed into this decision, or at least it came up more than in the original conversation, was the pricing. And I had a little difficult time understanding the difference in the pricing because with Amplified, there is print copy of materials where it looks like for Benchmark Advance that it's just for the digital license. Is that correct?
No, the printed materials would come with it as well, the consumables that are shipped out every year.
All for Benchmark as well?
Correct.
Okay. And one of the things that teachers expressed concern about was having to supplement and buy materials for the phonics with Benchmark. How significant of a concern is that?
I really can't answer that at this time just because we haven't really dug into it and taught it. Benchmark is also constantly upping their game. They're revamping the phonics piece of it. So we really haven't seen the actual current, what the vendor called a 2.75 version. So we would have to dig into it over the summer during curriculum meetings or at the beginning of the school year to really figure that out.
Okay. Because Amplify, the pricing is much higher, and I was like, what accounts for the difference in the pricing? And there's steep discounts. I'm assuming, because we have a contract with them now, that isn't going to be...
Benchmark.
Right, with
Yeah,
Benchmark. That's not carrying over, and that accounts for any difference in the pricing?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. So how do you answer the teachers who feel very strongly about the phonics piece, because the whole point of VLA is to reintroduce and reinforce phonics, and we've got teachers out there saying that Amplify does what VLA wants us to do now better. What do you say to those teachers on that point?
I think their coined phrase for me lately has been, we're going to do the best we can with what we've got, right? There are some really great materials on the supplemental list that can be utilized either way through CKLA or Benchmark Advance if we had to supplement. So there are some strong options.
That doesn't quite answer that particular question, but I appreciate it because you're in a difficult position. So with Benchmark Advance, we're kind of putting in faith that they're going to just continue to develop the phonics. And does it make sense to have a shorter contract so that, because I think the original proposal was that discussion was to extend Benchmark that contract for 2 years. And when I know in other environments, for instance, at Virginia Tech, you might pilot, like before just introducing something across an entire division or organization, you might pilot it. Is that a possibility? Because you've got all these teachers who want to amplify and say, this is what does phonics better, but I understand the reasoning for going with Benchmark, and so this is a very hard decision.
I'm sure there's always topics of discussion about how long the contract would be. I was under the impression that we were looking for 6 years, so that's kind of what I pursued. I think that would have to be a discussion that Dr. Bregan, Dr. Wickham, Mr. Sizemore, and myself would have to have, yeah.
Okay, I'm still thinking. I don't want to monopolize, though. Thank you.
Ms. Franklin?
I believe I asked this question before. So there has been training, or should I say development, for folks to use phonics and to use supplementary materials to make sure we're getting that piece fulfilled, right?
At this time, not that I'm aware of, but there will be if that's something that we need to do, yes.
Okay. So since there seems to be, especially with our K through 2 folks, that is a piece that they really want to focus on, maybe that's something we need to put in place so that we can help them understand we're listening to them.
Absolutely, and that's actually something that I kind of had on the docket for tomorrow after today's decision is made, just to kind of start working on if that was something that we needed to do. So it's definitely on my radar.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So to Ms. Parton's comment, teachers attending the Benchmark advanced presentations, my understanding is that there was significant amounts of PD that were already scheduled prior to those presentations?
I'm only aware of one that was scheduled, yes, prior to.
For how many teachers?
It was an implementation teams, so I believe we had 50 people in the division.
And
And that number is probably, it could have been more, I'm not quite sure, I don't have that data right in front of me.
okay. So of the 138 people that voted in Amplify versus Benchmark, potentially 50 of those were not able to attend because of PD. Additionally, Benchmark was also available via video presentation.
Correct.
So do we have records of how many people watched the video?
Yeah, it's in the data that was shared with you guys. One of the questions on the survey was, did you view the data for Benchmark? Did you view the videos for Benchmark? Did you view the videos for Amplify? And
Do you happen to know the distilled number?
I can look it up for you. A 102 of those previewed the presentations out of the 137.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So just to run the numbers, because I mean, 60% to 40% seems like a huge amount. This is 13 people voted for Benchmark and 20 people voted for Amplify, a difference of 7. The teachers that voted, 138 teachers voted, 92 voted for Amplify, 46 voted for Benchmark, a difference of 46. A difference of as many teachers voted for Amplify that voted for Benchmark. Why is there such a discrepancy? And why would the committee request us to vote against an overwhelming majority of our teachers?
I can only suggest that you read the responses that they wrote that's attached to the agenda. That would provide the feedback of what they got back from their teachers. From what I understand, every committee member went back to their schools. They had conversations with their teachers, with their staff, and came back and shared their responses.
Okay. I'll be voting with our teachers. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you.
I've got a few questions here, I guess, if I can get them all straight. So I just want to follow up on a question that Dr. Guthrie asked. So he asked if all the teachers had already taken the training for Benchmark Advanced. And I think you said yes. I just wanted to clarify.
And I need to clarify that. I would not say all.
Okay.
I would say we had established implementation teams, so there are people from each school that have seen Benchmark Advance.
Okay, right. So it would make sense if they had taken Benchmark training, right? I would hope so,
Mhm.
right? But the advanced training, I wanted to be clear on that. So looking at the costs a little bit, I'm not sure how involved you were in the build up there, but there's some pretty substantial discounts that we're getting through Benchmark. It appears, if I'm reading that right. Almost $500,000 discount, right? Is that because we're a current customer and they're trying to not lose us, or do you know that answer?
I do not. I was not part of the negotiation part. And Dr. Bregan, would you like me to reference Mr. Sizemore, or would you like to?
I mean, I think it was a process of negotiation when it came back to, like, here's the number for the renewal, whatever it was. And Mr. Sizemore kept going back and saying, sharpen your pencil, come back with the lowest number. And that's ultimately where they landed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did we do that same exercise with Amplify, who didn't seem to give us any discounts?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. And I guess also just trying to understand these costs, I'm assuming that since we are effectively starting over with Amplify, there would be additional costs that maybe we wouldn't need with Benchmark, right? Because like the charge quantities and some of these things, there's like 6,000 quantities of things.
Well, and the vendor did mention that it was the bells and whistles quote. So that's just kind of what she had said to me, and it was kind of a last minute thing, just trying to get all the information to you. So it's definitely something that could be negotiated.
I mean, I guess for me as a board member trying to make sense of this and decide on a vote, if we have a best offer from one and not the other, it's kind of apples and oranges to make the decision, because for me, cost is a big driver. I'm sure it is for some of my colleagues, right?
I was actually wanting to know, not to interrupt you, Chair Hudson, how are we paying for this? Just curious. If this is the route we go, how are we paying for it? Where's that money coming from?
Especially when we're hearing from our community, we're hearing from the Board of Supervisors, and to spend our money smart, and we've got these kind of figures, yeah, I don't think.
Well, that's my point, though. Like we're spending money either way. I feel like we
Yeah.
made them sharpen their pencils. We made one company sharpen their pencils, and we haven't asked the other company to do that yet, right? So it's a little bit hard to make this. It's a little bit challenging to make this decision, because I don't know that we've got the best quote for the one.
Chair Hudson, on that, is Mr. Seisman, sure, I'd ask him to come up, because I don't know that he didn't ask Amplify to do that. You did not? Okay. I didn't know that. In my expectations, everybody brings me the sharpened pencil.
And I will take full fault for that, only because it was we were on a rush timeline to get that to you guys, so it was kind of a last minute thing. So I do apologize for not getting
It's
that
fine.
done.
Let me get one more thought in, and then we'll keep going. But I mean, again, I'm struggling with this as well, right? Because we have overwhelming numbers from our teachers going one direction. We didn't get a lot of community response, but the community response that we did also leaned.
I was happy, yeah, definitely with 11. I think that was
Right,
great.
lean with our teachers, but also I look back at the rubric that I assumed that the committee did, and I just find it hard to believe that not a single category is rated in favor of Amplify. Every single category is rated in favor of Benchmark. I mean, unless I'm missing one. I scrolled through it quickly, so and if they went back and talked to the teachers who voted overwhelmingly, it just doesn't add up to me. So I'm not really answering anything. I'm struggling here. So we can keep going around. I think some other board members have follow up here. Ms. Bond, do you have anything else?
How many teachers are affected by this curriculum?
I think we figured roughly 450, 400-ish.
And how many how many were for Amplify, or how many did the survey as a whole?
Referring to the teacher survey, for the second teacher survey was 137.
Out of over 400.
Correct.
Okay.
It's like a third, no, a fourth. So I don't consider that overwhelming. That's what my point.
So, but, well, I mean, like, that doesn't mean anything, right? So, like, if that's your sample, though, wouldn't you expect the bigger sample to be larger?
138 representatives is way more than 43 representatives, or 33 representatives, sorry. You're representing a third of the population, whereas the others representing a tenth of the population.
This is where we always get in trouble with surveys, right? Unless you get 100%.
Right, go door knocking, right? Yeah.
Everybody can fill in those gaps however they want to, right?
Correct.
Ms. Parton, anything else?
So yeah, if I was looking at the Amplify curriculum correctly, it would appear to me that that particular curriculum looks like it is focused more on screens, and we're clearly trying to get our students off of screens. Am I incorrect?
Not necessarily,
in saying that?
It does have a lot of text that is used. I think a lot of the curriculums now give you the option for the online piece. The teacher materials are online, so they're able to print them if they need to or access it, but the majority is still student with text in hand.
Okay.
And that goes for both curriculums.
Okay, and it was Benchmark, I think I had heard or was told it was more easily presented as 2 hard copies for students. Is that correct?
Benchmark was presented as more hard copies?
Well, no, could be presented more easily as hard copies for students rather than screen.
I'm not sure. I didn't hear that either, so
okay.
I can't really speak to that.
So we're probably going to always want supplemental materials with whatever curriculum we decide to go with. And I think there has been some specific teachers that have pointed out some issues that they have with the benchmark curriculum as far as what they feel needs to be done better with that. I don't know, since I don't think Amplify is used in any other district, as far as I know, or if it is, not many. Do we have any feedback or any kind of information that could be provided for us that there's any kind of analysis on anybody who's used Amplify and been able to provide us feedback on the same or similar issues that some of the teachers are saying they've had with Benchmark?
So I did reach out to the VDOE and ask that question. Nothing's been released in the state of Virginia because everyone's in the same process that we are. So I don't have that data for the state of Virginia, but I do have information in other areas that I can provide for you.
Okay.
If that's okay, if you would prefer
Yeah, no,
that. Okay.
that's fine. I wasn't sure if you would even know that at this point or not. I just knew it hasn't been widely used, if used at all, so I didn't know if there was any comparison we could use for that.
Yep, I'll get you some data from other states.
I think that was all I had, but I will say that cost is up there for me, and as well as I think the committee, and I just think I do care about what our teachers think and commend them for their expertise on teaching, but we need to remember when we're doing surveys, we need to take into account our community and others as well. And we need to look at the big picture rather than just a specific part of it. Because when you look at the big picture and throw some common sense in there, pricing, it's going to be more work. You've got to learn something new along with all these other things that we're going to have to learn that's new for them for time. We've heard them complain about not having enough time to get things done. I just think we need to just make sure we stop and think about the big picture as a whole rather than just one particular part of it.
Absolutely.
Dr. Guthrie?
Okay, so what is the cost per student per license, Amplify versus Benchmark Advance? Because when I was looking at those costs, even with the discount, it looked like Benchmark was more. And I think, can you help me understand why with Amplify you wouldn't have gone back to sharpen the pencils and say you're competing for a contract? Why? Because, and I'm asking this question in part because we know, you knew going into that meeting that there was a division here, and we asked you, okay, help us with it. And I actually did read all of the comments from the committee, and multiple members of the committee said that they were going with Benchmark, and one of the things they mentioned was the cost.
Correct.
So somebody could look cynically at this process and say the administration put their thumb on the scale because they came back with a much better number from Benchmark Advance, which you could say, well, that's what they wanted. And then they got this contract, the price from Amplify, the original contract with all the bells and whistles, so you can't compare the actual costs. So I guess I'm a little frustrated that the administration knew that there was a division and didn't do the same thing for Amplify as they did for Benchmark to get the lowest number.
So originally, when I was asked to get the quote, it was the day before the documents needed to be submitted for the board. So that original quote was a 24-hour process, which is why it wasn't negotiated. And to be honest, the reason it wasn't negotiated in the last 3 days was because it was more about instruction rather than the cost, I think, was something we were trying to push with the teachers. Kind of, don't worry about the costs. Let's worry about the implementation here. Let's worry about what's best for instruction and what's best for kids. So again, complete oversight on my part because that wasn't my focus. My focus was the teachers and the students.
Yeah, but in the conversation, it definitely, like, if you look at the comments, a number of them had mentioned that the cost.
You're absolutely right.
And so it's putting us in a difficult position because we've got all these teachers out there saying, we want to Amplify, and there's just a handful of teachers. And one of, a big factor for them was the cost. And we're not comparing equal contracts here. So I don't actually know how to make this decision with the information that I have.
And the comment that I had made was also shared with the committee during the committee meeting, and Mr. Sizemore reiterated that as well, because some of the questions were about the cost, and we wanted them to know that that's not your problem, right? That's mom and dad's bills. That's not ours. Just worry about what you think is best to support the science of reading. You worry about what's best to support your kids in your classroom and what's going to work best for you. So I just different lenses at that point, I think. And again, I apologize for that.
Well, am I correct by thinking that they deal with schools and all the time? So I would think they would know to sharpen their pencils when they make the first bid, if they truly want to be accepted. I mean, that's what we do, so.
Dr. Getcher, anything else?
In contrast, Benchmark went back and sharpened their pencils and got it lower. So that's not what they do.
Okay, but Amplify could have done the same thing, could they have
They weren't
not?
given the opportunity. This opens up a lawsuit.
Do what?
This opens up a lawsuit because we gave one supplier the opportunity to go back and renegotiate their numbers downward, and we didn't give the opportunity to another supplier when we have an RFP out.
Well, you could still do that, could you not?
If we were to choose one of them today, we would be liable for, we would have a lawsuit potentially. Because from either company, Benchmark, if we chose Amplify, could complain that they sharpened their pencils, they cut costs, they cut items out in order to provide a lower cost contract to us. Amplify did not have that opportunity, so they're operating at a handicap to be chosen at a higher cost, but with more things. One, we gave the opportunity to cut things out but lower the cost. The other one we didn't. We need to go back and get a contract or make sure that both of them have the opportunity to compete hand in hand or apples to apples.
Just on that, that's great points that Dr. Roundtree mentions. Two things. One, it's not an RFP, so that competitive bid process isn't required. It's a curriculum adoption. But I hear you. You know, where I came from, and some of the people in this audience could tell you that whenever they bring me anything, I'm like, yeah, we're not paying that. Go back and get me another price. So that's been my expectation for a year and a half here. And I understand, for whatever reason, that didn't happen with the Amplify quote. And I think, as Ms. Metzel said, when making the decision with the committee, they wanted price off the table. Price wasn't the issue. What's best for kids? What's best for our teachers? What's best for our staff to use this curriculum? It's one of the adopted ones by the VDOE, so we don't want the price to be a determining factor, even though, as Dr. Guidry said, some people mention price, in their comments or whatever. Just let me finish my thought, if it's okay. So I get that. At the end of the day, whatever the board chooses, nothing is official until we sign a contract with the vendor and say we're willing to pay this or that. So I would say to all of you, don't make your decision on the price per se, because we're not paying that price. And even if the board approves a curriculum, we have to go back and negotiate the price and get whatever we're going to go with. And I'm confident that if somebody wanted this division to get their curriculum, that they would come down in that 1.1 million price or whatever it was. That's my 2 cents on it.
Ms. Franklin.
Okay, so I was ready to make a decision this evening until I heard the issue around the pricing and the opportunity that wasn't given, because that's a problem for me. Even though I absolutely agree, we need to be doing what's best for our students, and I appreciate you all conveying that to our teachers. But when I get a presentation in front of me, despite whatever further negotiations there may be, I don't have the information that I need, even if I say, I don't care, I'm ready to pay a little more for what we need. So that's a big problem for me. So my question would be, what's the timeline to be able to approve this so that you can get things rolling?
A month ago. No,
Last
I'm
month.
just kidding. I'm sorry. As soon as like today. But I understand where you're coming from, and I respect it 100%.
I'm going to recommend to the board, obviously y'all make the decision, that I agree with Ms. Metzel, this decision needed to be made yesterday, but any decision tonight without that accurate information would be perceived as making a decision not with the full information. And I don't want any of y'all to do that, and I don't want to do that. So I'm recommending that somebody make a motion to table this, and we bring this back for the 21st. That's going to be really difficult for our staff because we want to make sure everybody gets trained up before we start. You know, I wasn't here when Study Sync got implemented, but one of the concerns I heard was we found out we got a new curriculum on, you know, August 15th or whatever, and we thought it was just a textbook, and it was a whole new way of doing things, that we didn't provide staff with enough training. So one of the things this is going to put on Ms. Metzel and our team here is we're going to have to, you know, really amp up our training over the summer, whatever we approve, to make sure we get everybody up to speed. So that would be my recommendation at this point, Board Chair.
Yeah, so we've had about 12 dozen meetings in the last couple of months. Do we have one in between now and the 21st that we could make
We
a
could create
decision?
one. We got a few things coming up, so.
I mean,
Could do that.
Someone does a good job with that.
Good at scheduling meetings.
to that point, we're paying good money. I mean, Thursday or next Tuesday?
I was gonna say, if you want it by Thursday, I can have Mr. Sizemore and myself work with the vendors to make sure that we have final end-all be-all, this is what it is, and we'll do the best we can to get you what we can.
If you commit to getting us a quote as quickly as you can, we'll commit to getting a meeting scheduled as quickly as we can in order to have that vote, so we don't have to wait.
We can make that happen.
Only that vote.
And we'll talk about that, Petty.
I appreciate that, Board Chair, and I take full ownership for that, and I apologize for bringing this up. I'm actually a little embarrassed. I didn't give an explicit directive, and that's my fault, so I apologize.
I just want to say I appreciate everybody's work on this. I know this is hard. This whole thing kind of came up unexpectedly, and the administration's been trying diligently to get an answer. And this is hard, and this is, unfortunately, this is a controversial topic, as we know from the past few years. So I don't want you to feel like you're not appreciated.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Sizemore, everybody involved. This is important work, and we got to get it right. So with that said, could we get a motion to table this vote?
Don't we have a motion and a second on the
We
table?
haven't actually made a
haven't?
motion yet.
Okay.
This was all presentation.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Franklin and a second from Ms. Bond. Any other discussion? We started with the presentation on this one intentionally because we knew we had to go through stuff. Then we were going to take the motion, but we haven't even gotten that far yet. Okay. Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitcher?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Okay. The science textbook adoptions were provided to the board for first review on April 16th. They are brought back for approval this evening. And we don't have a presentation to go with that. Everything is the same as what it was. Do I have a motion to approve the science textbook adoptions as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Franklin and Ms. Bond, any discussion? Okay, Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitcher?
Abstain.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 abstain.
Motion carries. All right. Next up, Adam Simpson, the Director of Secondary Education, will present the process and timeline for the adoption of new textbooks for science elective courses to be implemented in the fall of 2024. No action is expected tonight.
Good evening. I'm presenting on behalf of MCPS Administrator of Science, Tony Deibler, who proposes the following process and timeline for the adoption of new textbooks for additional science elective courses to be implemented in the fall semester of 2024. This timeline includes textbooks for 5 electives, including Chemistry 2, DEAP Biology, DEAP Chemistry, AP Environmental Science, and AP Physics. As the timeline states, the plan would be to bring the recommended materials to the board on June 4th for first reading, and then back again on June 18th for approval.
Board, any questions?
I have a question. So part of the reason we just did what we did with the ELA curriculum was because we didn't follow the Code of Virginia on the textbook adoption. So has the committee already been formed, and is that committee going to be approved by the school board to follow the Code of Virginia?
On the timeline, you have the committees listed for each textbook, which included a parent and an administrator and a teacher. So those members are listed on the timeline.
Right.
For each course.
So I guess I'm a little surprised that, I mean, the reason we just did what we did was to follow the Code of Virginia. And so rather than to do that moving forward with textbook adoptions of various types, we're just reverting back to a process that's not sanctioned by the state. So I'm just a little surprised by that.
I do think that you can correct me if I'm wrong, but for these textbooks, we're talking about courses that are really taught maybe by one teacher at one school. It's not the same as a huge adoption as we're talking about the elementary level. So these are smaller adoptions, and so the committees are smaller in nature because of that.
Right. I understand it's not, but I mean, basically the law of Virginia says that for any textbook that's adopted by a division, excuse me, they have to go through the state process, the same process. So it doesn't matter if it's just one, if you're adopting a textbook for a division, you go through the textbook adoption process. So, yeah.
It was my understanding that we were following that process. So is there a certain part that you're recommending that we revise based on what's proposed tonight?
Well, those committees are supposed to be approved by the school board because they're school board committees rather than superintendent committees. That's the way that the textbook adoption process in the state code goes. So it's fine. I'll just abstain.
We're not voting tonight anyway. This is just informational, but, right?
My understanding was that was part of the process of what's being presented tonight. This is the process we plan to go through. Do you approve us moving forward with this plan?
Okay. The agenda doesn't have a vote for this. This was just you presenting the timeline. I guess what Dr. Guthrie is saying is that there isn't a note in here about the board approving the committee, just that the committee is being established in May and then moving forward to make their recommendation to us. So if we're all interpreting the code correctly, we need to step in there in order to see that committee and approve it.
Yeah, Superintendent Bregan, can you change the process that you're doing for textbook adoptions like we did with the ELA to follow the Code of Virginia? It's just one extra step, but it also is, it's just what we're supposed to do.
We could definitely review all that, and I'll talk to the team tomorrow.
If I heard you correctly, because there are several different books for small classes, and there's a committee for each one. So we would need to have the names of all those committee members, right?
Yes, and I believe they are listed on the links provided in the document.
So maybe it's just
If you go up by committee members, they're listed in there.
Yeah, there's a name of a parent, teacher, administrator for each course.
Maybe this just needed to be on the agenda differently as an actual action tonight for us to vote.
It's definitely our intent to match the process that you would like us to go through.
Of course, right. This is structured as just informational. There isn't a vote associated with it, so. So maybe if we're going to put together another meeting real quick for ELA, we make sure we get that vote, a Ricky take as well, so you guys can move forward.
Sure.
Board, any other questions? Comments? There's 2 items on that agenda now, Penny.
I'm listening. They starting to grow.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. All right, next up, Dante Harris, our Director of Facilities, will present an update on the Christiansburg High School renovation and construction project. No action expected tonight. Always got people with them. This is going to be good.
Good evening, Board Chair, members of the board, Dr. Bragan. Today, we, MCPS Facilities, will be presenting the update to the Christiansburg High School project, renovation and construction project. Today, I will be presenting along with Mr. Randy Campbell, who's our project manager. We have Mr. Philip Hash, who's our environmental health and safety person. And also, we have a new person within our group, Mr. Timothy Shepard, who's our new project manager. He may also fill in for Mr. Randy Campbell with the project. Today, we want to present an overview of the budget that we have currently for the project. As you can see, total dollars spent is $12 million. For the current fiscal year, we spent $6.6 million. I know the question has been asked about the current and projected budget, construction budget. You can see illustrated, we have the amounts broken down by each month. We're pretty much on target. You can see projected as the months go on for the summer, construction costs will go up and we are monitoring those. We have an interactive dashboard that we are tracking. This is just a snapshot of that. So this is the way we can be able to see everything going forward. Next, we have an overview of the construction for the project. It's broken down into 5 major milestone markers. The first milestone marker ends in May of 2025. The next one ends in August of 2025. The next one ends in November of 2025, and then in December, and then follow up by July 2026. Mr. Randy Campbell will go through milestones 1 and 2, and then Mr. Philip Hash will go through milestones 3, 4, and 5 in more detail.
Okay, on our milestone 1, which we've already started the new classroom addition, and it's going well. We've also got started on all the footings on the other end of the building where the cafeteria is and gym. Starting this summer, we'll be working on the existing corridors, which we're going to tear the ceilings out where we can run new chiller pipes, new hot water pipes, new domestic water, and electrical to all of our new switchgear panels. Okay. And the new addition cafeteria will not, the first part will be ready with the classroom wing in May, and then in July we'll have the administrative area and then the cafeteria and all that ready next year. Okay. These were just some photos that we had taken of the construction as it progressed along, being demoed out. These are the new aggregate piers. There's 417 of those total on the project. These are not new to me. I've used them projects before. They're very successful with slab and to hold up the building. And currently digging footers on top of those and all the foundation footers on the outside for the block work. Those are all tested at several thousand pounds of pressure per pier. This is a snapshot of what is going to be for Christiansburg High School. There'll be a 2-story building up there by the time we come back, probably in the summer. So everything comes back good. We're sticking steel in the air. On our second milestone, we've broken this up into a couple of categories. Category 1, a quarter renovation. We're having to tear the ceilings out in several areas to where we can get all that piping run. And then there will be a second part of that renovation, which will be putting everything back. So we're gonna have some open ceilings and a lot of dust over the summer. We've got 2 structural areas of the auditorium and the main gym, which will start this summer. And that project will run the entire summer with nobody in that space. And next school year, we'll start on building up the dance floor, what we call it. And we've got to tear the ceiling out of the auditorium, new wiring, new sprinkler system in there, new electrical lighting, new ductwork. Same as the main gym and the locker rooms. The flooring has to be removed, the bleachers, flooring has to be acclimated in there and replaced. And we have extended that a little longer on the 30 days because of getting the floor acclimated and tearing the scaffold up and putting it down. So, any questions?
One, when you mentioned a lot of dust, so I know you all have everything set up so it's contained, so it's not, and you'll make sure that when our students and faculty and stuff come back, that there's not a lot of residue.
No, there won't be.
Okay.
There'll be good thorough cleaning on that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to milestone 3. That will include a renovation of approximately 17,000 square feet of space that will house art and physics classrooms in addition to a gang bathroom. That is slated to be completed by November 2025. That's a 7-month section of that. Milestone number 4, approximately 41,000 square feet of space. That renovation will include life skills classrooms, biology classrooms, chemistry, band, and music classrooms. And that is slated to be completed December 2025, a 7-month time frame on that phase as well. Milestone number 5. Again, approximately 7 months of renovation, 80,000 square feet of space. That will include a lot of the CTE spaces, so the medical and lab classrooms, biology and social studies classroom renovation, early childhood and pharmaceuticals, and then the CTE renovations, as you can see, will happen in the summer months to be completed when the students come back. That should limit the disruption to those programs. Are there any questions with those milestones? Thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Harris if there are any further questions.
Does the board have any other questions for our group?
I have one question, Mr. Harris. Are we on time to ribbon cut on August 2026?
As of this day, yes.
All right.
Good answer. I guess I will just ask though, and just seeing it broken out by the milestones is really helpful, and the square foot. It's a lot of square footage in that last milestone, right? I mean, that's, you know, in the software world where I come from, that's building a lot of that application at the very end, right? So I hope we stay on schedule because it's going to be hard to make up any time in that last milestone if we don't. But
so far, Branch has been pretty good working with us. Mr. Randy Campbell has done an excellent job as far as managing Branch. I mean, we really worked hard to try to limit any distractions or interruptions to the school and to make for sure that we stay on target, because Dr. Bragan mentions that every Friday that we meet about staying on schedule. But we also monitoring the quality of the project and the cost as well, which is why you see with the dashboard, that's something that I've come in and wanted to work real hard about, because I'm a numbers person, so we want to make for sure that we're staying on target. So to your point, as far as branches identify the critical path, and they understand how to be able to hit those targets, and we're driving them hard. You know, when we have our meetings, tomorrow we have a meeting, our OAC meeting, we're pushing them real hard about making sure we staying on task. I mean, and that's something that Randy and I constantly are keeping that pressure on them as far as the pace to be able to say, hey, we want it done right, we want it done on time. We have had some hiccups, but at the same time, we've been able to recover pretty well. So I do commend my team for really working hard with me to be able to make sure we stay on focus, on point with this project. So.
Okay, great, thank you. Board, any other questions or comments?
Just thanks for the update.
So we will update the high-level construction project plan on our website so that way people can be able to see it, because we want to be transparent with everyone as far as what's going on. So that's something that we've been working on as well. So.
Just one more question, Ms. Harris, sorry. And I was with Mr. Bauer today, I should have asked him. The camera, the live stream camera, is that set up?
That's not set up yet. I don't think they got it in yet. We'll know more tomorrow when we go to the meeting as far as what's the status of it.
Appreciate it. That'd be helpful. Get that on the website, see the active site, like we talked about, time-lapse
Right.
photos and all that. Okay.
So as we come back for more updates, because we want to come back every month as far as giving updates to the board, Mr. Campbell has a drone that he's going to be able to have some like time-lapse photos that we can be able to have for the project. So he's just recently got his license to be able to do that. So we're excited about doing that for the project as well, because we want to, everybody be proud as a community as far as what's going on with the project, because it's been a long time coming. So.
Good stuff. Great.
Yeah. Can we get some videos in your presentation?
Sure. No problem. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
All right, next up, Dr. Amanda Widener, our Director of Human Resources, will present the MCPS staffing update.
Good evening, Chair Hudson, school board members, Dr. Bragan. I'm going to give you an overview tonight of our existing vacancies in the school division, as well as our vacancies for next year that we are in the process of filling. I won't go into detail as I have in the past of our current certified vacancies, the ones that you see. I've shared these with you at the last several meetings, so these are largely unchanged. And with approximately 2 weeks left in the school year, these vacancies we're working on filling for next year. But as I think you know, we have substitutes, mostly long-term substitutes in place to finish out the year for those certified positions that remain unfilled at this time. I do want to give you an update on our current administrator vacancies. Both CMS and BMS had vacancies in the month of April that we have been working to fill, so we do have a candidate selected for CMS, as well as BMS recently did interviews and they have recommended a candidate. Our Director of Finance position, which became vacant about a month ago, we are in the process of reviewing applications and we hope to begin the hiring process to fill that position soon. Our most recent vacancy for administrators is our Supervisor of Payroll and Benefits. That position became vacant last Friday. And so we will be looking to fill that position soon. I do want to let you know that while we don't have a supervisor there, we still have a payroll and benefits department that is very much intact, and we'll make sure that all of our employees continue to get paid on time. All right, I'll go through our current classified positions. We'll start in the area of facilities. As you know, this has probably been our hardest to fill area, with now 3 HVAC vacancies and 2 ground maintenance vacancies. So we do continue to look for applicants, but we're also trying to problem solve and look at some other ways in which we may hopefully fill these positions. Dr. Bragan spoke at the Joint Board of Supervisors meeting last week, talking about some ideas about possibly combining our efforts with the county to fill some of those positions. The HR department is also working with Mr. Harris. He has given us some ideas of how some restructuring that could take place within the department, in which money that has been allocated for new positions might be used to restructure the pay scale so that we can bring up the pay for some of those positions. So we are looking to problem solve so we can come up with solutions that will hopefully help us fill those positions in the near future. As you know, we have recently filled our construction project manager position. Mr. Shepard was just up here. The technology department has filled their last technician position, and they are currently working to fill a technology help desk position, which is their most recent vacancy. Our transportation department is ending the year in a fairly decent place with 2 4.2-hour positions that are open. All of our 6.5-hour positions are currently filled. We're excited that we have a candidate recommended for a mechanic position. That's a position we've been trying to fill for some time now. Still have 2 bus aide positions, and then we have a candidate recommended for the administrative assistant position in the transportation department. We continue to be in the hiring process for our executive administrative assistant board clerk, and we continue to look for a floater nurse position. Our special education para positions, we do have 9 vacancies, so we do have a number of those. Several of those, as I've told you before, are relatively new positions, and we do have 1 candidate recommended, and we have a preschool initiative paraprofessional opening. We have 4 lunch recess aides positions that are open. This is the time of year a lot of our lunch recess aides positions are filled by college students. So as college students end their year and sometimes leave the area, we do have some vacancies there. And while we were doing really well for a while, keeping our custodian positions, the vacancies low, we've seen a recent uptick with some new vacancies. So currently we have 8 elementary custodian positions and 5 secondary. But we do have a couple of candidates recommended, and Robbie Jones is working hard to review applicants and hopefully fill those positions as we move into the summer. And then, as always, I just want to give you a snapshot of our substitute information as we close out the school year. We currently have 530 substitutes. Our teacher fill rate for April was similar to March. Down a little bit, it was 93% in March, 91% for April, but our paraprofessional fill rate is up a little bit. It's up from 46% to 48%. And then you can see it broken down by teachers as well as paraprofessionals by strand. All right, I want to move on to looking at where our progress in terms of our positions that we're trying to fill for next school year. So these are our certified administrator vacancies. Some of these I've referenced already, but we're in the hiring process for a coordinator of special education. That's a position that's been open all of this year, but we have started the hiring process, interviewing candidates there. We are also in the hiring process to fill the principal position at Margaret Beeks Elementary School. And we have a candidate recommended for an assistant principal's position at Price's Fork Elementary School. They recently conducted interviews and have put forth a candidate. And I've already referenced CMS and BMS. So those are our current vacancies for administrators and our progress in filling those positions. Moving on, the next slide looks at our vacancies for elementary. Again, this is for next year. So we have currently filled 11 positions. Most of those are classroom. Classroom is still where we have the greatest need. You'll see that we still have 5 positions that we need to fill for elementary classroom, and then others in areas like reading specialists, specialty teacher. We have candidates recommended there. We're excited that we have 2 candidates recommended for open school counselor positions. So we've done quite a bit of hiring in the elementary area. Again, we still have 6 open positions, and again, most of those are for classroom teachers. But we're in a good position now, and we hope to be able to have those filled by the start of school. Moving on to secondary, so we have filled 21 positions in our secondary schools. So that includes our middle schools and our high schools. We currently have 14 open positions. Again, most of the positions we filled are for core teacher positions, so that's going to be English language arts, math, science, and social studies. Our biggest area of need right now in secondary is going to be elective teachers. We're currently looking to fill high school Spanish teacher position, health and PE position, and then we have 3 open career and technical education positions. And last but not least, special education. We've done a bit of hiring here. We have filled 8 special education teacher positions. In addition to that, we have 4 candidates that are currently recommended. That still does leave us with 8 open positions that we're looking to fill, along with 2 speech language pathologists and 2 school psychologists. So we have 12 open positions in special education. One thing that we're doing in our effort to try to fill these hard to fill positions is we are doing a recruitment fair this Thursday at the school board office. So from 3 to 7, we've advertised this. We're hoping it's on a walk-in basis. We're hoping that we will attract some candidates who will want to come in and interview. And so we're hoping that may be an opportunity for us to fill some of these additional vacant positions. But as you are aware, special education has been one of our hard to fill areas in certified positions. Do you have any questions?
I do. Oh, I thought you were. I do have one question. Is general in nature, and it was brought to me by an employee. What do we do to recognize long-term employee? Like if somebody's been with MCPS for 20, 25, 30 years, how do we recognize them? Is there any recognition when people hit milestones working for the division?
I know in the past, sometimes the MCEA has done pins for different years, like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I don't know if we're still doing that.
I think it's a great thing to recognize because we've got employees who've been working for us for decades. And,
We do.
And it was a long-term employee who was talking about other long-term employees, and they just wish that the division would recognize people who've been with us for, some for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea.
I appreciate that.
Board, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Wagner.
All right, thank you.
All right. Next up is unfinished business. Board, are there any items of unfinished business? Okay. Next up is new business. Are there any items of new business? Great. Next up, announcements and information. Are there any announcements? Anybody wants to share?
I'll go ahead. I just want to thank the teachers, administrators, other staff, and students. That the spring is such a busy part of the year. I've been to bingo nights and athletic events and wonderful theater performances, and I know that's just a small portion of all the things that are going on. And I just want to thank all the people that put in the extra hours to make all those things possible for our students.
Anyone else?
Thanks for our shirts.
Yeah, and I actually want to give a shout out. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. And I have to say something on a personal note. I have a daughter who is graduating from the ACE program on Friday. And if it hadn't been for our awesome teachers who got her to the point to where she is doing this milestone, she wouldn't be here without our teachers. And they prepared her. She's here because of you guys and all of our great staff and administration. And I just want to say I can't thank you enough. She can't thank you enough. We're not perfect, but we do have wonderful, wonderful staff, teachers, and it takes a village to get these kids to the point to where they can succeed. And I've seen several succeed, and she is living proof, walking proof that we are doing a great job and we are getting our students where they need to be, and they're being successful. So just thank you so much for all you do and all your hard work. And please know that from the bottom of my heart, it is greatly appreciated. All her teachers, too many to count, the ones that she didn't have that were there, the bus drivers, the cafeteria staff, the custodians, everybody that has had a part in taking care of the school, taking care of her, and getting her where she needed to be. We couldn't do it without you, so just wanted to say thank you so much. You are much appreciated, and we appreciate you guys so much. And she is thriving and going to start Radford at the new Radford School of Nursing program in the fall. And it's thanks to you guys for getting her there and her being able to get to that point. So thank you so much. It's much appreciated.
I'd like to echo that, not because my two boys are still in MCPS, but also to whoever's watching online. Thank you to the teachers as well. I was a chaperone on a trip recently. I wasn't expecting to with Miss Davis, and I want to shout out to her. Not only has she invested in my son, but to watch her commitment to our students. We were driving back from the other side of the state, and I could not stay awake, but she was driving, and just to watch her and like her passion. And I know that you could magnify Miss Davis tenfold, 100-fold, and there's so many teachers are just as dedicated as she is in our division. So I am incredibly grateful. I mean, the opportunities these students have, we can't take for granted. So it's only because they go above and beyond that they have these opportunities. So I'm incredibly grateful for the commitment of our teachers.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so I'd just like to, again, recognize teachers for Teacher Appreciation this week, and also principals for Principal Appreciation Day last week. I also had the opportunity to go to a summit on food insecurity at the Common Ingredient of the New River Valley last week, working with community members around Virginia Tech and around the rest of the community in order to understand food insecurity better. Several people were also there in support of the Senate bill from this past year that is a study on providing lunch and breakfast to all of our students, hopefully going to be passed next year. And then also, it was said in our Board of Supervisor and School Board meeting last week, but working with the community to address vaping and drug use in the community. Also, just a bit of a public service announcement for kids and parents. When kids are smoking, vaping, and they pass that to another student, they distributed drugs. They will come before us and see us. So stop vaping and stop passing them around to your friends. Thank you.
Stop that.
Enough of that.
And stay off the cell phones, yeah.
There you go. Great, board. Anything else?
No, I'll just say thank you again to everyone.
All right. Upcoming school board meetings. We have our upcoming agenda and board docs. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be our work session on the 21st. Sounds like we're going to try to do a special session between now and then in order to get some of those votes in. So look for that. Next up, do I have a motion to enter into closed session as authorized by section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia to discuss 4 personnel matters?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Franklin and Ms. Purcell, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitcher?
Yes.
Ms. Parton? Yes. Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. We're now in closed session.
Coming back out.